In this module, let's turn our focus to MVC controllers, specifically in terms of how they're integrated into the request lifecycle. How are different controllers actually selected and instantiated for different requests? And how are they executed? What components support this process? These are the types of questions that we'll answer in the next few lessons. Now, from my experience, this is sometimes an overlooked part of MVC comprehension, possibly because most of these steps are usually handled for you by the framework. The situations that require heavy customization are less common than with other parts of MVC. However, understanding this process can become important for debugging and architecting larger applications, and it can just give you a better grasp of concepts like dependency injection. In the previous modules, we explored the entry point into the MVC lifecycle and some of the supporting events and components. For the second half of this course, we really want to turn our attention from the entrance into the framework over to the actual execution of the framework. So the scope of the upcoming discussions will revolve around the execution of the MVC handler's process request method. We want to look more closely at components that you've probably already worked with, like controllers and action methods. We want to examine them in the context of the lifecycle and just get a better understanding of how the request flows from one piece to the next. When you first start working with MVC, things can seem a bit magical as the request seamlessly transitions between stages. Now we want to pull back the curtain and see what's really going on to make this happen. So once again, the steps of the MVC pipeline itself provide a really nice outline of this module. We'll begin with a refresher on controllers and their role in the MVC framework, particularly in the context of the request pipeline. Next, we'll continue where we left off in the previous module, examining the MVC handler's execution. This begins with the controller factory, which will handle mapping the request to an appropriate controller. Next, we'll look at how our controllers are actually instantiated using the Dependency Resolver and discuss some relevant extension points. By the end of this module, you should have a good understanding of how controllers are created and executed by the larger MVC framework.